Which of the following has headed the epiphysis? Now let us understand the laws of ossification. So that question also is being regularly asked. There are two types of ossification. Bone may be formed in the membrane, bone may be formed in the cartilage. Intramembranous ossification, endochondral ossification. So best example for membranous ossification is clavicle, a long bone with membranous ossification. Most of the bones of the vault of the skull, they are developed by membranous ossification. Cartilaginous ossification is, so first initially a cartilage will be formed. Later in that cartilage at some area ossification starts. That is what you call it as primary center of ossification. The center from which major part of a bone is formed is called primary center of ossification. The center from which a small part of a bone is formed is called secondary center of ossification. The portion of a bone formed from primary center of ossification is called diaphysis. The portion of a bone formed from secondary center of ossification is called epiphysis. Now this bone is growing towards this side, this is growing towards that side. For a temporary period, you find a cartilage, hyaline cartilage, epiphyseal cartilage. Intervening in between the, what type of cartilage is that one? Hyaline cartilage. Epiphyseal cartilage intervenes in between epiphysis and diaphysis. Now what is metaphysis? The portion of diaphysis adjacent to epiphyseal cartilage is called metaphysis. Now why it is given a separate name is, it is the highly vascular part. Normally you find the nutrient artery entering into the bone. It divides into hairpin loops in the metaphysis. Because of that presence of hairpin loops, there is a chance for stagnation of blood. Infection occurs mostly in the metaphysis. Okay. So what are the parts of young bone means? Diaphysis, which is formed from primary center of ossification, epiphysis, which is developed from secondary center of ossification. In between the two there is epiphyseal cartilage. All primary centers of ossification appear before birth except carpal bones and tarsal bones. Among tarsal bones, for calcaneum, talus and cuboid, they appear before birth. The other important point, all secondary centers of ossification, they appear after birth except for lower end of femur. Secondary center of ossification appears before birth. For lower end of femur, secondary center of ossification appears before birth. Rest of all secondary centers, they appear after birth. All primary centers of ossification, they appear before birth except tarsals, carpals. Among tarsals also, for calcaneum, talus and cuboid, they appear before birth. Okay. Then that is one. Then there are types of epiphysis. If this end is subjected to pull, you call it as traction epiphysis. If it is subjected to pressure, like condyles of femur, head of femur, it is subjected to pressure, you call it as pressure epiphysis. Trochanterus of femur, they are pulled by muscle, you call it as traction epiphysis. Then atavistic epiphysis. Atavistic epiphysis means phylogenetically an independent bone gains attachment to a nearby bone and gets nourishment from that. For example, coracoid process of scapula. In lower animals it is separate bone, but it has got attached to scapula during evolution. Then for talus, you find posterior tubercle of talus, os trigorum, that is a separate bone, but it has got attached to talus. So like that you find pressure. Sometimes you may find another epiphysis called aberrant epiphysis. Usually for all the metacarpals, epiphysis is at the distal end. For first one, you find epiphysis at the proximal end. Sometimes in addition to the proximal first metacarpal bone, in addition to the proximal epiphysis, you find epiphysis at the distal. So that is what you call it as aberrant supernumerary epiphysis. So normally for all the metacarpals, epiphysis is at the distal end. For first metacarpal bone, epiphysis is at the proximal end. This is called base, this is called head. Okay. So which of the following has head at the epiphysis? It is the phalanx, middle phalanx. This is head, this is base. Now only middle phalanx has got head at the epiphysis. For proximal phalanx, thumb metacarpal, epiphysis is present at the base. Okay. So this is third metacarpal. For phalanges, here you find phalanges, proximal phalanx. These they have got epiphysis at the distal. For phalanges there is no head in base. Okay. So third metacarpal is the answer. So now you can see here. These are all metacarpal bones. Okay. These are the epiphyses for the metacarpals. This is base. of first metacarpal. Where is head of the first metacarpal? This one. Epiphysis is at the base. For third metacarpal, epiphysis is at the edge. So question is, which of the following has headed the epiphysis? It is the third metacarpal. For phalanges, you can see the proximal end you find the epiphysis. You don't call it as head and base. False ribs. So now you can see true ribs and false ribs. Ribs posteriorly they are articulating with the vertebra. Anteriorly they articulate with sternum. Like that, upper 7 ribs posteriorly they articulate with vertebra, anteriorly they articulate with sternum. Such ribs are called true ribs, vertebrosternal ribs. Then what about 8th, 9th and 10th? Posteriorly they articulate with vertebra, anteriorly with a preceding cartilage. So you call them as vertebrochondral ribs. Last 2 ribs, anterior ends are free. You call them as floating ribs. Okay. So vertebrosternal ribs, upper 7. Vertebrochondral ribs, 8, 9, 10. Last 2 ribs are floating ribs. Now this is a manubrium sternum. This is sternal angle, and this is Xiphis sternum, which lies at the level of T9. This lies at the level of T4, sternal angle. The rib which corresponds with sternal angle is second rib. And upper border of sternum lies at the level of T2. So here the answer is 10th rib. Vertebrochondral ribs. 8, 9, 10 are false ribs. 11th and 12th are floating ribs. True about linea aspera. So what is linea aspera? Posterior border of the femur is called linea aspera. So this is posterior aspect of the femur. This is head of the femur. Then you find the neck. Then there is greater trochanter, lesser trochanter. And this is a shaft. Lower end of the femur is provided with 2 condyles. So prominent posterior border of the femur you call it as linea aspera. That is present only in the middle 1/3. If you trace it upwards, towards lesser trochanter it is forming spiral line. Towards the greater trochanter it forms gluteal tuberosity. If you trace it downwards, it is forming medial supracondylar line, lateral supracondylar line. Lower end of medial supracondylar line is provided with adductor tubercle, where adductor magnus is attached. Then you find 2 condyles. What is the peculiarity of lower end of femur? Secondary center appears before birth. Normally secondary centers appear after birth, but for lower end of femur secondary center appears before birth. Again this is important, lesser trochanter. To the lesser trochanter, strong flexor of hip joint is attached, iliopsoas. Iliacus and psoas major are the powerful flexors of hip joint. They are attached to lesser trochanter. Then to the here gluteus to the to the rough end impression, gluteal tuberosity, gluteus maximus is attached. So linea aspera is which border of femur? Posterior border of femur. In the middle 1/3, posterior border of femur. So it is not the lateral border, it is not the medial border. It continues as gluteal tuberosity. So the lateral lip continues as gluteal tuberosity. Medial lip continues as spiral line. So what is attached to gluteal tuberosity is gluteus maximus. What is the action of gluteus maximus? It is a powerful extensor of hip joint. So while you are climbing the stairs, you keep the foot on the upper stair. From there you have to extend the hip joint. That is brought about by gluteus maximus. Extension is brought about by 2 sets of muscles, gluteus maximus and hamstrings. Hamstrings are present at the back of thigh, semitendinosus, semimembranosus, biceps femoris long head, and adductor magnus ischial part. They are extensors. So that is gluteal tuberosity. So linea aspera means prominent posterior border in the middle 1/3 of the femur. The lower margin of neck of the femur is very prominent. That is what you call it as calcar femoral. Calcar femoral is lower margin of neck of the femur. Mobile bone of the skull is, the only mobile bone of the skull is mandible. Rest of the bones are fixed joints, fibrous joints. Olecranon process of ulna helps in. So for the upper end of the ulna, you find olecranon process, coronoid process. The notch between the two is called trochlear notch, which articulates with trochlea of humerus to form the elbow joint. To this olecranon process, triceps muscle is attached. On the back of arm, you find a triceps muscle that is attached to olecranon process, and this is coronoid process. On the anterior aspect of the coronoid process, there is a rough end impression called ulnar tuberosity. To this ulnar tuberosity, brachialis muscle is attached. Where biceps brachii is attached? To the radial tuberosity. In the front of the arm, you find two important muscles which are responsible for flexion of elbow joint. Biceps muscle, brachialis muscle. Biceps muscle is attached to radial tuberosity and brachialis is attached to ulnar tuberosity. Now here you find a notch for radius which articulates with head of the radius to form superior radioulnar joint. There are three radioulnar joints: superior, middle, inferior. Superior and inferior are pivot joints. Middle is syndesmosis. What movements occur at radioulnar joints? Supination and pronation. There are two specialized movements in the radioulnar joint, supination and pronation. Supination is brought about by supinator muscle and biceps. These two are supinators. Pronation is brought about by pronator teres and quadratus. So, olecranon process of ulna helps in the formation of trochlear notch. About clavicle, what type of ossification? Endochondral ossification. It is membranous ossification, intramembranous ossification. It is the only long bone which is horizontally placed. There is no medullary cavity in clavicle. Normally, all the long bones are provided with a central cavity where you find bone marrow. So, that is called medullary cavity. So, this is a long bone without medullary cavity, long bone pierced by cutaneous nerves. Normally, a cutaneous nerve does not pierce a long bone. So, it is pierced by that. Normally, you find only one primary center of ossification. This is the long bone with two primary centers of ossification. First bone to start ossification at 5th week of intrauterine life. Last bone to complete ossification in 21st year. So, these are all the peculiarities of clavicle. Long bone which is horizontally placed, long bone with no medullary cavity, intramembranous ossification, long bone with intramembranous ossification, and pierced by cutaneous nerves with two primary centers of ossification. Now, here you can see the medial end of the clavicle which articulates with sternum to form sternoclavicular joint, which is a saddle joint. Lateral end of the clavicle articulates with acromion process to form acromioclavicular joint. The junction between medial 2/3 and lateral 1/3 is a common site of fracture. Okay. Medial 2/3 is convex forwards, lateral 1/3 is concave forwards. The common site of fracture is that one. In the medial aspect, you find sternocleidomastoid and pectoralis major, they are attached. Lateral aspect, you find deltoid and trapezius are attached. On the inferior aspect, you find conoid tubercle and trapezoid ridge for the clavicle, to which coracoclavicular ligament is attached. This is conoid tubercle and this is trapezoid ridge. The ligament which is attached to it is conoid, that is coracoclavicular ligament. What is the common site of fracture is junction between medial 2/3 and lateral 1/3. Okay. So, it is a long bone with intramembranous ossification. First bone to start ossification, that is in the 5th week of intrauterine life. Last bone to complete ossification, that is in the 21st year. Pisiform bone articulates with. So, you should know the carpal bones. Now, this is the lower end of radius. This bony projection is called styloid process. Suppose if there is a fracture of lower end of radius 1 inch above styloid process, what is that fracture called? Colles fracture, dinner fork deformity. Then this is the scaphoid bone. The scaphoid bone is common carpal bone which is subjected to fracture is scaphoid bone, which lies in the floor of anatomical snuff box. If there is a tenderness in the anatomical snuff box, you can suspect the fracture of scaphoid. Then after that there is lunate. Then there is triquetral, pisiform. What type of bone is pisiform bone? Sesamoid bone. It is formed in the tendon of flexor carpi ulnaris. So, pisiform bone is articulating with what? Triquetral. Then there is trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, hamate. So, pisiform bone is not coming in contact with any other carpal bone. It is only coming in contact with triquetral. So, it is articulating with triquetral. Scaphoid is here. There is no relation with the pisiform bone. You have to remember in order: lateral to medial, scaphoid, lunate, triquetral, pisiform, trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, hamate. Okay. So, it does not articulate with, it articulates only with triquetral. Lunate is here. This is lunate. True about blood supply of scaphoid. The carpal bone which is commonly subjected to fracture is scaphoid. So, you can see the blood supply of scaphoid. Major part of the scaphoid blood supply is from dorsal surface. Suppose if there is a fracture of scaphoid from here, then the proximal part segment gets the blood supply, but the distal part gets the blood supply. Proximal part is subjected to vascular necrosis. That is the clinical importance of fracture of scapula. Okay. So, major supply is from dorsal surface. So, this is the palmar aspect. This is, you can see artery is present on the dorsal aspect, and from distal end the artery is coming. So, proximal end is subjected to vascular necrosis. True about clavicle. So, it is endochondral ossification. True about clavicle, no medullary cavity. Endochondral ossification. It is intramembranous ossification.